My name is Logan Gagne, and this is the CCR from my movie opening, Untitled. The film is about 3 teenage boys that wander through the woods and stumble across something horrifying. My group and I were able to create this film with the knowledge of mise-en-scène, cinematography, editing, and sound. We used props such as the fake arm, the jars that were shattered, and the flashlight. The setting is a forest near a friend's house, and he actually ends up playing the dead body. We also use elements of cinematography such as the zoom when the jar was about to be thrown, and the whole movie was handheld. We made several decisions directly based off genre conventions and cinematography of found footage films, like purposely talking to the cameraman and even swapping who holds the camera in the middle of the opening. We do this to point out to the audience that this was on purpose, not that we just went out in the woods and goofed off with no plan. Social groups are usually represented in horror. The people doing drugs or having sex die first, and sometimes there's only one person remaining, and it's female, which is another popular convention of horror called the final girl. Although we didn't use any of these representations, since we had a limited amount of people that worked with us, but we did challenge them by only using one race and age group because horror movies casts are usually spread out and diverse. We ended up choosing Blumhouse Productions as a production company because they have a great record of producing low-budget horror movies that end up doing really well in theaters, and that would fit in with what we plan to do with our full movie. The film will be exhibited using a limited release strategy that releases the movies in a few theaters or film festivals, and then they slowly release out of those theaters into bigger theaters depending on what the audience thinks of the movie to maximize potential profit from this film. The target audience will be teenagers or young adults, since those are the type of peoples that watch horror movies, since kids are too young and older adults wouldn't really care to see a horror movie. I've become a better filmmaker than I was at the beginning of the class, because at the beginning, I had no idea there was so much effort and work that had to be put into filmmaking. I assumed the class would be fun and easy. The class was still fun, but a lot more work had to be put in than I initially thought. I've learned about the 4 main parts of filmmaking, and that greatly helped my group and I create a good project. I learned the process of filmmaking has a lot of different parts that all work together to create a finished product. And even then, there's still work to be done with distribution and exhibition. It takes a lot of work to complete an entire movie. Lots of different parts and tasks have to be completed. Planning the project was the easy part. My groupmates and I talked and came up with a pretty good idea, a found footage film with a monster. Creating the script was also fairly simple, even though we only loosely followed it. Then came shooting. We went out to our set and started the first scene, but when we watched it back, we realized our voices were too soft. The camera microphone couldn't really pick it up. We tried speaking up and that worked slightly better, but we just ended up fixing the sound in post. We also realized we didn't have enough clips for the film. It only came out to be around 38 seconds. So we had to improvise a plan and have several backup scenes, which ended up getting scrapped in the final cut. These clips that didn't seem to fit in with the movie. They were really bad looking since we didn't thoroughly plan them. There was one of me jumping off a log, and one of me hitting my groupmate with a stick, and they disrupted the overall feel of the clip. We ended up going back on a later day to reshoot, and we got the necessary clips that we needed. Editing the project was by far the hardest part, since I've never edited a video before and I had to learn how to. With everything we wanted to put in, it took me 2 straight days of editing to figure out the software, edit the whole project, and fix the mistakes I made. When starting this class, I had little to no knowledge of filmmaking. I didn't even know where to start if I wanted to even make a film, and now I do. Now I know there is a certain way that a scene has to be set up, a balance with all the props and decor in the background. We also ended up using lots of different technology to finish our film. I used my Nikon D3200 to record the project and a laptop to edit the project with a software called Lightworks. We tried using a Blue Yeti snowball mic, but it didn't seem to fit in with our project and made everything 100 times more complicated. I learned that editing is harder than it looks, and trying to get the scene to play out just as it does in your head is very hard and time-consuming. Next time I record a short film, I'll be sure to use a microphone that's separate from the camera so less sound editing has to be done, and the project is easier in the end.